Hey everyone's Classic DM, and I want to make a video for you guys who are really hardcore into AD&D about the story for Against the Giants. Now, there is story already prescribed pretty much in the front end of these modules, but what do you do about it? And what if you're going to play it in another version, like you're going to play it in AD&D 4th edition or even 5th edition, without having to go back and buy someone's remake of the whole thing? You know, and even when I ran these a long time ago myself, I thought it was really important to kind of have my own storyline. So we're going to talk about just the storyline stuff. We're not going to run through the dungeon or any details like that. So the Glacial Rift and Hall of Fire Giant King. Now, for me personally, these maps are like level 9, 10 level characters in AD&D, and a large party, right? And the reason why that is because it's a lot of fighting. You're like infiltrating, the steadying of the Hill Giant Chief. And you probably have heard me mention this hundreds of times. I have a detailed video series that really talks about how to run that whole adventure, and it's like just walking into a base, like a hidden base somewhere full of soldiers. So it has a very militaristic kind of theme, but you're fighting enemies related to giants, everything connected to giants, and you're slowly discovering some kind of plot line that ultimately will lead you to the descent to the depths of the earth, the shrine of the Kotoa, and the Vault of the Drow. And then if you want to, and you'd like to get confused, you can do the Queen of the Demon Web Pits. So in everything ever created in the TSR era from 78 to 85, these modules are, in my opinion, the most fun to run because they're just so heavily combat oriented, and the secrets that you discover, and it has lots of treasure, lots of loot. There's not a lot of complexity. Like if you pick up a Rime of the Frost Maiden, right, for 5e, you've got all these side stories. It's about all these characters. There's a lot of role play stuff in there. There's little maps of all these towns. I mean, it's a massive campaign setting, right? But there isn't just a good old-fashioned go in there and infiltrate the place and don't take any prisoners. And the old theme of AD&D really had that. Let's not ramble any more about that. Let's get right into this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in a little bit and get out of this double-page view. And let's just change this to single-page view so I can zoom in really close so you can kind of see following along with some of this stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're going to zoom into this area here. And I'll turn this music down just a touch. So in the beginning, when the first one's written, it uses this basic premise, right? Giants have been raiding the lands of men in large bands. With giants of different sorts and these marauding groups, death and destruction have been laid heavily upon every place these monsters have visited. This has caused great anger in high places, for life and property loss means failure of the vows of noble rulers to protect life and the goods of each and every subject, and possibly lean times for those rulers as well as ruled. You remember that, the world of Greyhawk is very much a feudalism kind of a location, which is really cool. So it's like playing a Dungeons & Dragons is really kind of like the Middle Ages in Europe. That's almost everything is based on that. Later on, yes, they do some other Asian things, but most of the themes are always just anchored on Europe. And even some of the names of some of the places are taken from historical places in Europe. So therefore, a party of the bravest and most powerful adventurers have been assembled and given the charge to punish the miscreant giants. These adventurers must deliver a sharp check, deal a lesson to the clan of hill giants nearby, or else they'll put their heads upon the block for the headman's axe. Nope, not happening. This is something about this adventure I think almost every DM changes. No one's going to send you, equip you, give you stuff to say, you better go to this giant complex, risk life or limb, and if you don't do it, we're going to chop your head off. That's not going to happen. But hey, it's dramatic. So whoever was writing this, maybe they're thinking like, well, the game is a Middle Ages kind of world, and you have fealty to this higher lord, and you're going to play along and role play into that character, and you're like, oh my goodness, we better go do this. Yet this charge is not as harsh as it seems, for all have been fully equipped with all standard items needed for both the wilderness and dungeon exploration, and each member of the party has likewise been given the finest horse available. Guides are available to help, and the leader has a splendid map showing exactly where the great timber fortress of the chief of the hill giants in the area is. This chief, one Nazra, I always call him Nazra. I always leave the N out. How do you guys say it? Tell me, is it Nazra or Nazra? Is a grossly fat and thoroughly despicable creature, sly and vicious, loving ambush and backstabbing. Furthermore, the party has been cautioned to expect a secret force, some motivational power behind this unusual banding of different races of giants. More surprises might be in store. Well, that's just alluding to the whole appearance of the drow. They're the one that are doing all this stuff and trying to get all these giants to work together, do their dirty work for them. The interconnectivity. This whole series is just an introduction to the whole drow society. It's almost like if you're writing a book series with 6 books, but you really want book 6 to be the awesome one, you write book 6 first, and then book 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 is just build up to it. It almost feels like the way the Lord of the Rings was laid out, right? The whole One Ring thing is in the beginning is a problem, and then at the end it's resolved. But in the beginning you don't know what the problem is, but Frodo does. Gandalf tells him, right? So in this situation, there is something going on, but you won't know what it is until you get into it. So that's one thing about the discovery of some of the interesting monsters and creatures and kind of like their ecosystem, which this whole series introduced into D&D. Prior to that, you'd have a lot of one-shots. It's gnolls and goblins, and they're in little caves. Whoopee! Or the shattered little, ruins of the moat house, which simply then leads to the Temple of Elemental Evil, and which that leads you into all these like different versions of these elemental air and fire and earth and all this kind of stuff. Really wild, kind of fantastical, still really cool. But this is very grounded, really grounded kind of adventure, an epic adventure where you don't know what's going to happen. Okay, finally the party has been instructed to keep any and all loot they chance upon, this to be their reward for the perils they are to face. They are to follow any clues discovered in such point towards a sinister hand, suspecting guiding the rising, but return once they should determine plight. So when I ran this in 2018, when I first started the YouTube channel, I did these I played with these signature characters who are really overpowered, well on purpose, and they were going to go in there like a group of 7 of them, and they had a plot point, and this is something that you should do. This is what the whole theme of the video is. You need to create a plot point as a reason for someone to go just here. You don't need to make a plot point that's going to send them to kill the drow. That's a surprise, right? So in my situation, I was like, okay, how about this? There's these 2 big families, right? There's been a marriage, and then there are 2 royal families of 2 different nations in the world of Greyhawk, right? Like Ket and the Frost Barbarian, and whatever the other location was. I've forgotten what it was now. I think it was the Tiger Nomads. Tiger Nomads and Ket, their rulers got together, man and a woman, had a royal child, right? And this child is abducted, and no one knows how the devil that happened. But the clues that maybe like the search parties were sent out were that these giants captured the child. So you have a rescue mission. You've got to save this royal child. In fact, in that original series, it's almost like a live play thing, but I'm controlling all the characters and all the enemies. There's no other player at the table, right? It's just to kind of like recapture the fun of being a kid again when you have no one to play with at the time. The whole idea behind that is that this child is a relative. This is like your niece or your nephew. And that's something from movies like Man on Fire, right? That make things interesting, where there's a connective tissue between you and the characters, and is it a member of family? And I use family as a lot of my own themes in Order of Succession, for example, right? In that situation, you've got an uncle you've never met, and you've been given, the proglia, etc. So my point here is, this adventure is just a knockdown, drag-out war of you sneaking into this facility. No, you can't burn it to the ground. We'll talk about that later. So that you can have fun playing D&D. And then the story elements kind of pop up near the end or in the middle. So you're playing for long periods of time, maybe multiple sessions, and then a little bit of clues pop up. But you need to have this overarching mission. And the mission can't be go to the giant compound and kill everyone. Sure, it could be. Yeah, sure, let's go kill everyone. But when there's a story point that has meaning behind it, it's much more interesting, right? So let's assume that you've come up with something, and you've taken this adventure, you're playing at Pathfinder, and you're going to find some mountainous region where these guys could work, or maybe you've scaled everything up to use the Pathfinder stat blocks, I've done this before. I've run this in Pathfinder. It's fun. You just have to change the level brackets in the stat blocks. That's the only thing you have to change. Everything else can stay the same. Although modern day Pathfinder players are really balanced, so it's a lot less fear involved. But if you're going to do this, what happens in the end? How do you get led from point A to point B? And at the ending of this module, there's some very interesting little clues that happen. And let's go slip over to that page real quick. We'll go back to 2-page view so we can get through here quickly. And let's say you play through the whole thing. This is the first level, and we get all the way down to the bottommost level. You have this final room, right? And the final room is this area here. And let's go back into single-page view. Okay, and we're going to zoom in again. All right, here we go. Let's zoom this in over here on the right-hand side. All right. So you finally get into like the chief's treasure room. And you get past all the traps and all this kind of stuff at the very end. You get 23,000 gold pieces, which is like 2,000 pounds worth of gold. And all these platinum pieces and gems. And you're like, oh, good Lord, we made some money, serious bank. Lots of magic items. But when you finally get to this final area, this is where the connection happens to the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, as written. All right. In addition, there are 3 empty and broken boxes, and in the southeast corner, what appears to be a broken barrel. The later is an illusion, for it's actually a well-made and watertight cask, which contains a map showing the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl and an obsidian box. In the latter is a chain of weird black metal, adamantite, and instructions written in Hill Giant on a sheet of human skin. The instructions show that the chain is a magical device which is to be looped into a figure 8. Thus shaped, it will transport up to 6 persons in each circle of the figure 8 to the Glacial Rift if one of their number holds the map. It will appear that a large growth of yellow mold covers the southwest corner of the room, but this is another illusion hiding the following magic items. Magic arrows +2, magic spear +3, which is awesome, and a flaming sword, chaotic lime, etc. So, I used this idea. I call it the infinity chain. It was really neat. This is a long chain. It's not something you throw around your neck, right? This is a long chain that you would lay it on the ground because it's almost like a Star Trek transporter. The thing is, when players are playing the game, first of all, they may not discover this illusion, because illusions are kind of handled in a weird way in AD&D. It's like I disbelieve. You have to kind of, when we played, we always understood it that the player had to either discover something, like, oh, I put my hand here and my hand went through it, as if it was translucent, and they go, wait a minute, what's going on with this? Is this an illusion? And then make a saving throw, right? Something that would tip the regular player off that it's an illusion, where they would say something and then investigate it, and then you would roll like a saving throw to see if they could tell whether it's real or not, whether they believed it. And it's kind of tricky because if you have player 1 says it's an illusion and player 2 has failed the saving throw, player 1 has to convince player 2 that really illusions, show it to them. Anyway, so illusions and secret doors are tricky in AD&D. Sometimes it's better just to have the stuff out in the open, especially with modern day players who aren't as secret door centric as they used to be. In the old days, everything had a secret door. We were searching every wall all the time. We played Wizardry by Surtek on an Apple IIe. I mean, everything could be hidden, you know? And at this point, you've got so much money. You've killed mana cores. You killed tons of stone giants, clown giants, bucket loads of hill giants. You're feeling pretty badass at this point. You're not in this massive investigative mode. You're in the treasure room. So I suggest that what you try to do here is don't make an illusion, right? Have the well-made watertight cask, but make it ornate and beautiful, like a long black tube. There was one Star Trek episode years ago that had whale song in it and a theme like that. I can't Voyage Home or something like that. And the ship that was in orbit around the planet Earth was this massive cylinder of shiny black Tootsie Roll material, like adamantite, right? So it'd be better looking, instead of being a watertight cask which somebody put beer in, think of it as, hey, listen, this is a big long tube that's like 6 feet long and it's about a foot in diameter, and it looks like it weighs about 50 pounds, and it's covered with crazy looking elven ruins. You know, that's intriguing. Someone's going to see that and then go, oh man, what is that? They maybe try to read languages, figure out what it is. Then when they open it up, they pull out this chain and this map, and then these instructions on human skin. Whoa, this is a big deal. What is this? This isn't a magic item. This is some kind of a clue. And that's what you want to have happen at the table, right? Now, this is a map, right? It shows the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, not map 2. So it's not a map that's like, go down the street, hang a left, go past the mountains. When it gets really snowy, go down this week, Rift Canyon, right? The Grand Canyon of the Frost Giants. It's a map of it. So what you have to do sometimes is you're going to need to create some kind of a bluff map that you can hand to the players. And I did that. So I did like a rough tracing of the entire map, and with no markings, I wrote a bunch of dwarven runes all over it and gave it to the players. They know that, well, it's a big canyon, and it's got this thing down here. What's this little weird skull? And, it's the Ramorhas. So that's the things I suggest you do to make this adventure really interesting. Don't rely on some of the older school kind of secret door illusion things, because players can come in this room and never discover anything, and they probably know 50 years later that this the Glacial Rift of Frost Giant Jarl connects to this somehow, right? That's something that could be kind of a problem. All right, let's pretend that you took this, weird black metal adamantite chain with the instructions that say show someone putting it on the ground, right? And then this next set of instructions show like a diagram, like you see in the back of an airplane flap with a seat in front of you, shows people hill giants standing in it. You could even tip it off to have like an image of an elf with dark black skin, female, okay, instructing them to do something with hand gestures. Because remember, hill giants have to read the instructions. They're probably pretty dumb. So it's not going to be step one, place slot A and slot B, and get 10 millimeter ratchet set. You know, they're not going to do anything like that. There's put the chain on the ground. When they stand in the chain with the map, that activates the teleporter and it sends you to the location. So what happens at the other end? Let's go take a look. Now we have to go to the Glacial Rift or Frost Giant Draw. I actually love this adventure. I absolutely love this one. This one has this cool Nordic, frozen north, slippery ice. People are frozen in blocks. There's a Remorhaz on the cave floor. There's a huge, massive wassail happening in the bottom, which is what I did to modify it, because if you actually go in the original adventure, the wassail's like not happening and all the chairs are pushed against the wall, which is really boring. It has a great hidden chief room in the inn. It has pet dragons. All kinds of awesome stuff in here. Tons of monsters to kill. I love this one. Let's go into single page view and let's take a look at how this one talks about the story. All right, so we're going to zoom in again here. Let's just get to the right page. And here we go here. I always thought this picture was hilarious. This dude's like rappelling down the side of the mountain, and John's like, hey, and this guy's like, ah, shit. You have to laugh. Some of the old D&D pictures were sometimes kind of like, you could almost hear the words coming out of their mouths. Okay, so some dozens of leagues to the north and west of the steading the hill giant chief. This is something else you want to think about. You don't have to put the locations exactly the same, right? This is up north, so obviously it's a frozen, cold area. You're not going to be down south in the Medio jungle, right? And we're just reading the side over here, okay? Where is it? Amidst the tallest mountain peaks is the stronghold of Grugnor, Lord of Frost Giants. As Frost Giants have been among those who have been been in the reaving bands, the parties to deal with them as the Hill Giants have been dealt with. Death and destruction are to be meted out to the Frost Giants in the same measure as they given the people, as they gave to the people as below. Those members of the party who have participated in the raid upon the setting will know that their most important mission ever is to garner intelligence to what or who is behind the unholy alliance of Hill, Stone, Frost, and possibly other types of giants as well. Any such information gained is to be delivered the fastest means to the nobles sponsoring the expedition, while the party, that's kind of tricky, while the party is to follow up clues in order to prosecute offenders, any treasure taken to be kept by the party, etc. And of course, in the typical old, it's kind of hard to read because all, italics and faded in these old PDF copies of the originals. It tells you what kind of party members you have. Okay, so here's the thing here that's kind of interesting. It's assumed the parties either followed a map obtained from the steading or used a magical chain found there to arrive in the neighborhood of the Glacial Rift. If they spend a few hours searching the area, they will discover a hidden cave in which they can safely hide themselves, their mounts, equipments, etc. So what I did when I ran this is I made a separate little map that was like a cave, and I made it have this kind of ceremonial, ancient kind of drow, really old drow kind of trappings. As if you went to this cave, it was really cold, and you come in this flat area, and then suddenly like, the walls were polished, and there was a few runes everywhere, and there was like storage containers, as if you're going to be like in the transporter room in the Enterprise and need to get a phaser. Like it had this kind of like transitional place, and there was footstep markings leading out, and the place was pretty quiet. So the idea is that when you use the the infinity chain, because the figure 8 on the ground is a symbol for infinity, that you would teleport here and you don't have the chain with you anymore, or the chain is still on the ground. So someone could teleport back and backtrack and use the steadying the Hill Giant Chief as their stronghold. Because what you have to assume here is that when you use the chain, I'm going to just call it the infinity chain, that it comes with you. It doesn't stay behind. If it stayed behind, that means someone at the other end can come through and it's not secure anymore. I know it sounds complicated, but that was something to think about. Smart players go back to the steading of the Hill Giant Chief to store all their stuff and use that as a staging area. So that's a good idea. In AD&D, you had to do this because stuff was so darn heavy. You had to take time to heal up, get your spells back, and you weren't just always just pressing on with a short rest and all that kind of stuff you have today. Now, people were less patient, and these older versions of D&D have these kind of bizarre, heavy-duty, hardcore rules, but sometimes that's what makes it really fun. So in this situation, it's written to say, like, hey, there's a cave nearby, so you don't have to go back to the setting. You don't have to do anything with the chain anymore. They don't even talk about that, right? But in my mind, I thought it was a really great way. It's using the chain as a way to teleport between point A and point B, so therefore there needs to be some kind of a marker on the ground that shows you exactly where you land, like a transporter pad, right? Something along those lines. All right. We got the spot, make undue noise there. If any event, the same search also revealed the rift The thick arrow indicates the beaten path which the giants follow to enter the place. There are 2 icy ledges on either face of the rift. Both slope slightly downward and occasionally high steps. And now they immediately just start going to talking about like, hey, what's going to happen? Can you fall down? You start talking about the map itself, right? So this is probably one of my favorite maps, adventures of all time. Its theme is just so cool. This one and the Shrine of Tomoeshan. Tomoeshan is so cool because it's Indiana Jones all over again, right? It's like Maya Temple. When you work your way through this whole dungeon, it's all kinds of cool. One of the best Ramorhat pictures ever done. David Trampier. And this is the map of the complex. I got a surprise for you at the end about maps. And when you get to the final room, once again, this Jarl's antechamber, there is a little bit of a description about how do you get connected to the next area. So let's just go back in a single page view again. And we'll zoom in and go back up so you can see it, because it's hard to see the stuff, right? And you have to look for the description that says this is where the connection of blah, 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 blah. And here we go right here. So here we go, right-hand side, right? Behind the wall hangings on the eastern portion of the north wall. Sorry, you're in a treasure room. There's a bunch of stuff on the walls. Is an hidden escape tunnel. It is natural passage about a mile long, which turns south and exit the base of the mountain glacier area, out of sight of anyone near the rift. The alcove to the northwest appears empty, but if it's examined with care, there's a 1 in 6 chance per person examining the area they will note a thick iron bar protruding from the wall and about 10 feet above the floor, at the height that a frost giant would grab this bar. The bar moves downward and transports whatever or whoever is standing on the floor of the alcove to a spot some 50 feet distant from the entrance to Snur's Hall, the Hall of the Fire Giant King. An apparently empty ledge along the southwest wall is a resting place, an iron box, blah, 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 and you have magic. So there's an escape route. So at the end of the adventure in the king's, the Frost Giant Jarl's treasure room, he's got an escape route, which just goes to the surface, right? So you go out the escape route, you go down a mile, you and your wife and all your stuff, you're being attacked, got to get away, maybe you have a pet griffin with you, whatever, and you go out and this cave goes through all the way out and escapes the area. So that's just to get the devil out of the area. That's not where you go for the next adventure. The next adventure has this 1 in 6 chance of being discovered. Get rid of that. Nothing is worse than having people have no idea how to get to the next adventure. I like to put ship logs, maps, letters, other details that are written from party A to party B, so that when you find it, you're snooping, right? I like to have things that are like instructions for their next mission, which never happens, right? Gifts of tribute from the Frost Giants, giving it to the drow, and the drow writing something back to them. When the players discover those things, those are great opportunities to make little props to give to them on the table. Like, hey, you find this really crazy looking map drawing here. It's got a bunch of writing in it. Have them decipher the writing, and they can see that something's signed by a Clavdra or whatever you want to do. But get rid of the whole 1 in 6 chance to discover that this is bar up high, right? And it says it's an alcove. So this is an opportunity to use the same theme that you had before with this infinity chain. So you transported with this infinity chain from the setting of the Hill Giant Chief to a special room, a special cave. When I said, listen, let's make this, drow-looking cave with obsidian wall, adamantite walls, etc., make it have markings and ruins. This alcove would be the same because the drow would have made it. They would have made this network so they can come and go, teleport back and forth, and do whatever they want to do to make sure that their operation is working successfully, right? So this is something that I think you need to remember. It's thematically connected. The drow are running the show. The drow are controlling the transportation, and they're providing these dummies, a way to get back and forth. And each king or chief has decided to hide his way of teleporting from you. Don't hide it. Make it obvious. Describe this cool alcove just like you did before, like almost copy and paste the same description, and then have this iron bar that everyone can stand on this platform with these runes on the ground and pull the lever, right? And then go like in Star Trek and get teleported to the Hall of the Fire Giant King. All right, you see where we're kind of connecting everything here? So this is the thing about this adventure that's so cool. As written, it's awesome for gameplay, but the connective tissue, word I like to say, the connective elements are a little bit on the weird side. So let's go to single page view in this one. This is a fantastic 3-level long dungeon. The bottom level is totally annoying, but it's cool because you're getting deeper and deeper into this Nordic mythology of this fire giant realm. The first two levels are really, really complicated. This is a go in the front door. Oh my gosh, I'm in the Grand Hall. I mean, it's a really, really nasty adventure. It's fun. It gets to the point right away. There's no like running around the snow and finding all this other crap. You're like right at the king's room in the first room. That's the thing about this adventure that's so much nicer. All right, let's go to the actual description page here. And like we do before, we're going to go here and just read this real quick and then talk about it, right? So, just as the trail led from the steady hill giant chief to the frozen wastes was found the glacial rift of the frost giant Jarl, so the adventure in the latter place has led, or transported, the intrepid party to what they hope will be their last challenge. Sounds like a Survivor episode. Anyone know what you're playing for? They're about to venture into the hot and smoking barrens, which are in effect Muspelheim. Muspelheim is actually a real place. Not really. It's part of Norse mythology. You can go read up on it. It is kind of this place with lava and burning fields and everything. So, the home of fire giants. In the vast rocky halls of the fire giants, doughty liege lord, the dread King Snur Ironbelly. Right? That's a great name, isn't it? You gotta love that kind of a name. They hope to find the answer to the riddle who is behind the strange alliance of many different types of giants, as well as great treasure. Surely here in the stronghold of the fire giants will be encountered the evil genius or genii controlling this uprising and planning well-executed attacks. It's 2023, right? This was written in like, what, probably 1977, 78, 79? It's a long time ago. Everyone knows the drow are behind this, so you got to make it exciting for the players to find clues that prove the point and have twists. Like, remember I mentioned before, like a great idea is to have the noble child, like the king's granddaughter has been captured, and he happens to be she happens to be your niece or your little sister, something like that. That feels like the drow are going to sacrifice this child. We can't let that happen, right? It can't just be because they're going to lop your heads off. So, getting all the way down here, this whole journey, most people know that this is the culmination of facing off against the drow for the first time. And they also know that this is a hard one. This one has a really big reputation. The fire giants aren't as dumb as the hill giants, but there's the same intelligence as the frost giants, but the frost giants are more crude. The frost giants have caverns and don't have very many fanciful architectural constructions. All right. Fire giants are ferocious opponents, and their associates and helpers will undoubtedly be proportionally stronger and more fearsome than those of the lesser hill and frost giants. Sobering thought indeed. However, the reward of success cannot fail to be greater, for fire giants and their masters perhaps will have a lot more loot to take. If the party actually been into the other two places, or at least one of the other characters have, they will know that there is a charge upon to report definitive information to the rulers for them to inflict punishment on the rapacious giant raiders. This is big language for 1978, right? They are to slay the fire giants and all who associate with them. Failure means death, whatever. Just forget that part, right? All right, so it's just a very dramatic, it's almost like a Monty Python intro. So when you finally get to this adventure, one of the best parts of this whole adventure is the very, very first room. And of course, you've always got to read the details about how tall the ceilings are, because these places are designed for giants walking around. There's not stuff designed for people walking around. Let's go to the next page here. And put this back on two-page view. And then when you get to this first area, this entry room is really wonderful. I'll zoom in a little bit close. This is probably one of the most signature places ever. And when you're a little kid and you first get into this stuff, the reason why it was so fun is because there's a picture on the back of the module of what this entry passage looked like. There's no cool picture of the Grand Hall, but this floor here is polished obsidian. The great wall hangings can be seen by the party as soon as they enter. Tapestries between torches are done in bloody color to show victorious fire giants. The door guard is an alcove A. You know, even when you get to this adventure in the very beginning, this first room is like, whoa, man, this is really cool. We're actually like in someone's like lair, right? And when you get to the very back here, the very back, this door, it's just by Trampier, 1978, this was done. It's just like, wow, look, the characters are writing hippogriffs or something. You got this awesome picture of the fire giant king himself, very vicious. So when you get through the whole thing, and this is 3 levels of this stuff, okay? This is not just 1 level. This is 3 levels. The first level is all construction. The second level has some construction, a little bit of cave. And the third, lowest most level is all caverns with lava flows and all kinds of stuff like that. So when you work your way through everything and get all the way to the end here, this is where you get this connectivity about the drow. So This area here is where we connect to the descent to the depths of the earth. Let's just go to single page view again, and this will allow us to zoom in so you can see this stuff, because nothing worse than not be able to read it, right? All right. You bump into the drow, you've held these fights, all this kind of cool stuff's going on. If your players enjoyed these scenarios or simply this single scenario and intend to continue with their balance of the modules which follow G3, their party will find an adamantite tube when they search Area 20. A scroll and a map dropped by one of the fleeing noble drow, well, unless the players kill everyone. The scroll contains a wish spell, probably the most powerful spell in all AD&D. Really fun to run. As long as people don't wish for 3 more wishes. The map is a continuation of the drow escape route, showing a vast maze of passages on a large scale. There are 3 cryptic areas on it, which should indicate the whereabouts of vast subterranean cities and other strange places which are far deeper than the dungeon known. This map will include your players in the next module, Descent to the Depths of the Earth, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, blah, 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 blah. So they're talking about the next 3 modules, which I'm not going to go into today. What I want to do is give you a cool surprise. Okay, if you want to have fun, you have to go use John Pintar's maps. This guy lives in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Slovenia is a beautiful country. When I was working in Budapest way back in 2006, 7, and 8, and 9, we were making Crisis Warhead, and we were also working on Game 04, which is Project Redemption, which has never been released, back in Frankfurt. And we had a really awesome team, and we went to Bled Castle, and we based all the locations of that game in Slovenia. It was essentially you're playing a hitman escorting a niece across Slovenia on foot with like mobsters, the Polizei, the Germans are after you, the United States people are after you, everyone's after you, trying to kill you because there's something about this girl. She knows something, she has something. It was like a MacGuffin. Anyway, I digress. This is a beautiful country. They have salt flats, ancient ruins, there's canyons with magnificent water. John Pentar, I've talked to him once before. I wanted to do a map for him, but I just couldn't afford him. He's so talented. He has on his ArtStation profile a store. You could tell this guy loves D&D. Take a look at his store. Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil, Castle Amber, Against the Slave Lords, White Plume Mountain, Desert of Desolation, Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, Queen of Deemway Pits, Tomb of Horrors, Vault of the Drow, Descent to the Depths of the Earth, Caves and Caverns of Chaos, In Search of the Unknown, Against the Giants, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, Castle Ravenloft, even the Temple of Elemental Evil. These things have no cost. You can give a tip. If you download these things and you have an ArtStation account, you can download these things and you leave a tip. Let's just give you a quick example, right? Where do you think this is? Well, it's blue, right? Look at the detail, these bones, like these scratchy surfaces on the ground, the bones. And this is just a little cavern. And this is a 5-foot square. This is a 1 inch by 5 foot square, I believe, unless he did it 10 feet. I don't remember the scale that he did. But this is zoomed in at 78%, right? This is 100% like this, about like that. Look at the detail of this guy's maps, right? These are rooms in the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. He even put in, like, I did this in my freehand maps, but his art is awesome. He has, like, little beds on wood things, and, it's just awesome. Really cool. All the rooms on these dungeons are done. This is one of the levels from the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. You know, there's the Ramorhaz layer. Look, even needing, like, ice and stuff cracking. If you're going to play VTT, you have to use Jon Pintar's maps. They're absolutely freaking awesome. I absolutely totally love this guy's stuff. It's amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do maps that well before. And you know, we were talking about the Hall of Fire Giant King. Let's see if we got one of those up here. Hall of Fire Giant King, grid 1. Great. We'll close this one. Let's make this one big. This is only 4%. Okay. I mean, when you talk about that first room, that first hallway with the tapestries and the doors, remember the picture of the door? And here's the first hallway leading in here. And this is the throne room. Look at this detail. This isn't like random, this isn't someone stamping things. This is a guy doing this art himself. It's just absolutely freaking awesome. I want to play this damn map again. It's so cool. His work is amazing. This must have been a passion project that he did for years to play with his friends. He didn't have to put this rug in here. I mean, all these details in here just make everything feel like a real place. I mean, look at the armory with stuff on the walls. It's just awesome. So, like I said, go make an ArtStation account. It's now owned by Epic Games, which I used to work at. I was one of the original guys that designed Unreal, and there was 12 of us way back in 1996, 7, and 8. Go to John Pentar, follow him, like him, and if, say, you wanted to, like, you really want to run the Desert of Desolation series, right? You click on this. That'll bring up his marketplace. You don't have to pay for these things, right? And you can add this to your library. So add this to your library, and you can give a tip. So if you give the guy a tip, give him $1, give him $3, $5. These maps are amazing. I just add this to my library and say, hey, okay, I'm not going to do that. You get a download that you can download, and then you can just grab it, download the file, and then extract it on your local machine, and then inside will be all the maps. And they're big. They're really big. So I hope that gets you excited about playing these adventures, because I tell you what, there's nothing in the whole world more fun than playing any version of D&D, and that's what the whole idea was today. Like, how do you handle a storyline for Against the Giants? You know, and we could do another one of these if you like this for Descent to the Depth Earth, which has a Shrine to Kuatoa and the Vault of the Drow. But oh, I just love this stuff. It's so fun. So many awesome memories as a kid playing these things. And I hope you like this video. You can probably tell by the passion of my voice, I'm almost yelling that it's so cool. All right, well, I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a great day. Go get your maps from John Pentar. He is absolutely awesome. And tell him I sent you, okay? Because the guy deserves a break and more followers. He's got like 9,000 followers already, but he deserves to be rewarded for his passion. He's keeping AD&D alive. He wasn't even born when this stuff started, okay? Cool. Hope you had fun with the video. I know it's about 35 minutes, but hey, share it with your friends. Like and subscribe. Let me know what else you want to see. More AD&D, more Pathfinder, more original games, more new books, more reaction video type things. Whatever you want to see, let me know, because I'm really motivated to get the content going for you guys to have a laugh with. Take care. We'll talk to you later.